Hi, I'm Matthew Ritchie from Grafton Street Grill in Cambridge. Today we're going to be talking about corned beef and cabbage. It's a pretty traditional dish right around St. Patrick's Day, especially in the Boston area, the Boston, New York area. Although upon some recent research I found out that it's not really that traditionally Irish, it's very American Irish. In fact, in Ireland, typically speaking, they don't eat or will not buy corned beef. It's when the Irish immigrants came to America, they were introduced to corned beef by their Jewish neighbors, who actually introduced it to them as a less expensive and easier to find alternative to the classic Irish bacon, which was typically used in place of corned beef in this boiled dinner. But in honor of St. Patrick's Day in America, we are going to be serving and discussing corned beef and cabbage the American Irish way. So I'm starting off here with about 4 pounds of corned beef. This is red corned beef brine brisket. Now what that means is that it's been brined, slightly pickled with various seasonings as well as salt. The term corned beef actually comes from the salt that they used to use back in the 1800s and before, when the refrigeration was very scarce. So the salt that they would use to cure the beef, to allow them to keep it for a couple of days or longer if necessary, it was actually a very large grain salt, a very large grain rock salt that was about the size of a kernel of corn. That's where the term corned beef comes from. The red corned beef is a little bit more popular in this part of the country than the gray corned beef. It's cured a little bit more intensely, so it retains that nice pink color, versus the gray corned beef has a little bit less aggressive of a cure. The red corned beef is also a little bit more flavorful, so it's the one that most people tend to know. It's the most popular. It's the one that we are going to use today. So, in order to cook the corned beef, first of all, we're starting off with about 4 pounds of corned beef. In order to cook it, it's a very tough cut of meat, which is why it's so inexpensive and so popular with immigrants and peasants. It's a very popular peasant dish. In order to cook it well, you need to cook it very slowly for a long period of time. So I like to start off my corned beef. You can do this in any sort of oven-proof casserole or any other sort of baking pan that may fit the corned beef. The biggest thing you want to look for is being able to cover the beef itself with water and be able to cook it in an oven, in a slow oven, for a good 3 to 4 hours. So then to this we're going to add about 2 large carrots, largely cut, about 4 ribs of celery, again cut very largely, and about 2 medium onions, and then we just cover with water. I like to start with cold water because I feel like it starts off the cooking process more gently, allowing the corned beef to retain more of its texture and more of its shape during the entire cooking process. So then with this we just cover it and put it in the oven at about 350 degrees for about 4 hours. Okay, so parsley sauce is very traditional Irish sauce, typically served with roasts and or boiled dinners, boiled meats. It's basically a bechamel, which is a very old French sauce to which a large amount of parsley is added. I like to start the parsley sauce ahead of time, have the base ready to go, and then once the base is ready to go, we can finish it off with a little bit of chopped parsley right at the very end, so we retain that bright, fresh parsley flavor. So, starting in a saucepan over medium heat, we're going to add about 4 tablespoons of butter. Once that starts melting, we'll add a 1/4 cup of diced white onions and a 1/4 cup of sliced leeks. Now we're just going to let this cook for a minute. The idea is to sweat the vegetables. Basically, we're going to cook them at a low temperature so that they start releasing their moisture and their flavor from inside, start breaking down and releasing all the flavor into the sauce. So we'll sweat the vegetables for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now that we've sweated out the leeks in the onions a little bit, we can add about a 1/4 cup of flour. And this is going to be the basis for our roux. This is going to hold the sauce together and give it its thickness and its body. So just stir that in. Let it cook out for just a moment. Next, we're going to add about 4 cups of milk, or 1 quart of milk. Now at this point, we still want to keep the flame fairly low. It's very easy to burn this sauce. The flour will drop to the bottom, stick to the pan, and burn very easily. So we just want to stir to incorporate and continue cooking on medium to medium low for about 30 to 45 minutes. While the sauce is coming up to temperature, I like to add the stems from about 1 bunch of parsley and about 3 bay leaves. All of these vegetables and the parsley stems will be strained out once the sauce is done, but for now they can give us a lot of extra flavor in the base of the sauce. So once your sauce is cooked for about 30 to 45 minutes, you should be able to taste that the flour from the roux, the flour in the sauce, has cooked out. You won't be able to taste it any longer. But the parsley will have given it a nice basic flavor. The leeks and the onions will have helped to give it a nice base flavor. Then we can look at the consistency of the sauce and make sure that we've got just about the right consistency. And the right consistency that we're looking for is just thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. That's pretty standard. It's called nappe in French. But that's just about perfect consistency for us. If need be, you could thin it out with a little bit more milk. If it's a little bit too thin, you could continue to cook it for a little bit longer and it should thicken up for you. Now we want to strain out all of the inedible parts that just gave all their flavor to our sauce. So with a fine mesh sieve in another container, just want to strain and here we're just trying to remove the parsley stems, the bay leaves. The onions and leeks wouldn't really hurt the sauce at this point, but because they're not the texture that we're looking for, so we're just going to go ahead and remove them. So once your corned beef is cooked, about 4 hours later, I like to cool it off first and save the liquid, save it separately. Then I like to cut my corned beef into nice manageable portions. So this is about 8 ounces, give or take, which is of already pre-cooked beef is more than enough for most people. So we have this all cooked, ready to go and chilled for us. Next we're going to start cooking all the vegetables to bring the whole dish together. We're going to start off with the cabbage because it typically takes the longest. So we take our cabbage wedge and we drop it straight into this liquid that came from cooking the corned beef. Now that's going to help bring all the flavors of the dish together because we've got the cooking liquid from the corned beef. We're starting off with the cabbage, and then we're going to continue to add the rest of the vegetables to this dish. The idea sort of is that it's a simple boiled dinner. This is the type of thing that mom could start in the morning or start around lunchtime. Just keep throwing things into the pot through the course of the day, and then by dinner time have it ready, hot and ready to go on the table. So our version is a little bit fancier. We take the pieces apart a little bit and put it all back together in a manner that everybody can recognize. So your cabbage will need to simmer for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. You just want the cabbage to get nice and tender, especially right around the thicker leaves, the root area. Just let them get nice and tender while they're cooking. Then once the cabbage is nice and tender, we can start adding all of our other vegetables. At that point, we'll add some red potatoes. And some carrots and parsnips. we'll let these cook for another good 5 to 7 minutes until the carrots and the potatoes start getting tender as well. So once we've got our potatoes, carrots, and cabbage all cooked to the point that they're nice and tender, but still retaining their own flavor, their own texture, this is the point where we can start to reheat our portions of corned beef. So I just drop it straight into the boiling water, and this should only take about 2 to 3 minutes to heat it all the way through, and then we're ready to put the entire plate together. So in order to finish up our parsley sauce, as our meat is coming up to temperature, we just take the amount of sauce that we want for the number of people that we're serving. Bring it back up to temperature. And now we want to season it, obviously with a little bit of salt. With a good amount of chopped parsley, I recommend 1/4 to 1/2 cup. I'm using about a 1/2 cup right now. It should be very generous on the parsley. It should be very strongly flavored with parsley. We're looking for that nice bright green color. And then purists in Ireland, purists of Irish cuisine, will say that white pepper is their favorite kind of pepper. And from all the Irishmen that I know, I definitely know that to be true. So we'll finish this sauce off with a little bit of white pepper. Give it a taste, make sure that it's seasoned properly. That's the stuff. So once our corned beef is heated up and all our vegetables are cooked properly, in order to finish the plate, we need to start fishing everything out of the boil. So we want to look for even amounts of the potatoes, the carrots, and the parsnips. And I like to arrange them first on the plate. Even though this is a very peasant-oriented, sort of an older idea for a dish, I think that it has a great amount of color and a great personality on the plate. I think there's no reason to be ashamed of the presentation or the look of this dish, despite its humble roots. There's our nice piece of braised cabbage. Then we top it off with the corned beef. And our parsley sauce. I generally don't like to hide the corned beef under the sauce, but some people prefer it. And there we are. Corned beef and cabbage with carrots, parsnips, and parsley sauce.